my name is Irene, and in this video we are going to be adding interior walls to our existing retail space. And through this we are going to discuss the interactions between different architectural elements, in this case specifically between a drop ceiling and interior walls. So let's get to it. So, as I mentioned before, we are going to be working with the retail space that we have been developing up to this point. If you may notice from the last recording that we did to this one, I continued playing a little bit with the layout. Again, it's just more to showcase the fact that you can add a bunch of different things. So, for example, I'm thinking about furnishing, I'm thinking about display elements, my cashier area, storage space, and a bathroom both for my employees and my customers. And what I want to do now is I want to add interior walls. So interior walls are going to be exactly the same as exterior walls. Again, our quickie is WA for walls. And this time we are going to be working with different walls than the generic ones. So again, remember, we use generic walls when we don't know what the making of a wall is, which again, it's pretty common when you're working with an existing structure. If it's a new building, you may know that it's all cinder blocks or it's like metal studs and blah, blah, blah. But with some older buildings, you can run into a lot of madness once you start removing the drywall, right? You may have sections that are brick, sections that are cinder blocks, sections that are God knows what. But with walls that you are proposing, you should know what is it that you're proposing. Now, that being said, I'm not going to go super crazy. I'm just going to do interior partitions from the options that Revit is giving me. And specifically, I want to go with the interior 5-inch. Yes, let's do this, guys. So I'm going to choose my interior 5-inch. This is going to change my plan in here a little bit because I think that what I drew here was like 4 inches. But again, this is the beauty of working with those model lines. They're just like for planning. And now when we start drawing things for real, we're going to have to do other adjustments. So if you remember, when we are working with walls, the most important thing for us to set up is going to be our heights. Your default height is going to be based on whatever level you're on. In this case, I'm on my general floor plan, which if we go, sorry, I'm going to skip for a second. If we go back to one of our elevations, let's say the south elevation, if you remember, we have two levels. We have AFF, which is basically our above finished floor, and we have our US, which corresponds for our underslab. So if I come here and I go back to my wall and I have my 5-inch partition to what matters is making sure that your base constraint is the bottom levels, in this case AFF, and that you have a top constraint that is associated to a level. Again, we do not want to leave it unconnected. So in this case, it's going to be my underslab. Location line now is going to be a little bit different. When we were doing our perimeter walls, or in that case, what we choose, the interior side matters, because when you're working with an interior space, you don't really care about what's happening outside, right? So we're drawing from the inside out. But now everything is inside. So it doesn't really matter what you choose as your pickup line. If you want to go with finished phase exterior interior, once you're designing interior spaces, it's not going to matter as much. That being said, as a good practice, I always leave it on finished phase interior. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start outlining my spaces. So let's say that I'm going to go from here. Yeah, that's fine. Let's say I'm going to click here. Let's say I'm going to click there. Perfect. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. Space to flip it and put it there. There you go. Those are my walls. As you can see, as I draw my walls, because my model line is on the floor, what's happening is that as I draw my wall geometry is sitting kind of like in front of my model line, and that's why you can no longer see the model line. It's similar to what was happening with our reference DWG, that as we drew the walls, basically we could no longer see the DWG. So if for whatever reason you still want to see your model lines, you can always go to your visual style and switch it to wireframe. And see, I can see now my model lines. I'm not super concerned about them right now, so I'm just going to go back to the default headline. Now you may notice that these interior partition walls are designed to properly connect between each other. So if you don't understand what is it that you're looking at with all of these lines, basically the space in the middle is your studs, whether they're wood or metal. I don't know yet. We would have to check the properties of the walls. And basically this is showing me that there's 2 layers of drywall on either side. So we're going to speak about this a lot more in future videos. But for the time being, it's important to kind of have a general idea of when you're working with these walls that are made out of multiple elements to understand what they are. So if you want to have a better understanding of what you're looking at, what you can do is you can select your wall, you can go to edit type, and you can go to structure edit. You can actually expand this area here and see it's showing me my basically layers of my wall. And if I look here on the side, you can see that indeed we have, again, we're going to go into a lot more detail about this later, but basically you can see if I expand this guy here, I have 2 layers of gypsum wall board, then I have a layer of metal stud, and then I have 2 more layers of gypsum wall board. So if you're ever curious about the composition of the walls that come by default with Revit, this is how you can check it, okay? Now, everything seems to be good with this, but there's actually a big problem, and I'm going to show you what that is by going into my 3D view. So again, everything looks awesome. I can see like what my space is, but look what's going to happen if I hide my roof. So I'm going to go hide element, and this is the problem. Let me switch my visual style so we can see a bit better what's going on. This is what's going on. Basically, my walls, my new walls, are clipping through my ceiling. And I'm using the word clipping specifically. Whenever you see 2 geometry interacting with each other and you do not see the line in between, this is a bad sign. This is a red flag, because basically this means that both these geometries, in this case my ceiling and my walls, are ignoring each other. Now, this is not good. This is not how things work in the real world. In the real world, you cannot have objects ghosting through each other, right? One of them has to stop the other one. Now, this is where things get a little bit interesting because we're working with dropped ceilings. So there's really going to be 2 ways that this is managed. And this is once again, not a matter of what is right or wrong. It's just more a matter of like, what is the application? So when we have interior walls and we have a dropped ceiling, you're going to have some cases where your ceiling extends throughout the entirety of this space and your interior walls stop at the ceiling. This is going to be very common with retail or office spaces where you have a really big square footage of basically what they call open layout. So basically that means that the developer has built the building with the intention of renting a big swath of space and then letting whoever is renting subdivide that space based on their needs. Again, you see it very commonly with big office spaces, clinics, so like dentists or like private clinics, where once again, they rent a big office space, so to speak, and then they come in and they build their walls, and usually those walls are going to stop where the original drop ceiling was. The other way that you're going to see this interaction is going to be the opposite, where your interior partition goes all the way to the under slab, and then your ceiling is defined by the perimeter of each room. This is more common with more customizable spaces. So to be honest, with a retail space like this, that will more likely be the scenario where you're first putting your partition walls and then you're doing the ceiling. Usually these spaces are not going to come with a drop ceiling, and instead they're going to have an exposed structure. But for the sake of this exercise, it's probably easier. Like, I wanted to give you a smooth intro into ceilings and walls, and this is the easiest way to do it. But we're going to see other examples of that. The main advantage of having your interior walls go to the under slab and then have the ceiling defined by the rooms is that in this case, you are going to be able to have each of those ceilings at different heights, be different materials, be completely different from each other. So we are going to much later. As you may have noticed, it can sometimes take me a little bit of time to post a video, but much later, we are going to be working with a restaurant project. And in that project, we're actually going to be doing individual ceilings for the different spaces, and we're going to see that. But in this case, I want to go more with the big commercial space layout option where you just have one gigantic drop ceiling and then your interior walls were built afterwards, and thus they stop at the ceiling. So how can we do that? Easy peasy. The easiest way is you can select all of the walls that you want to stop at your ceiling, and then basically what you can do is you can say attach top to base, and then you're going to click on your ceiling, and that's pretty much it. See, now my walls stop exactly where my ceiling is. See, I'm going to show you another way that you can confirm that you've done things right. So I'm going to go Control Z to undo this. And if I go to my general floor plan, we're going to be making a little section So you can see a cross cut of my building. So to do a section, you can go on the very top here, these tools, and you're gonna see that there is a tool for section. Unfortunately, there's no quick key for section, so that is option 1. Option 2, you can go to view and you can find that same section here. So what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna draw a section. Oops, it's looking in the wrong. You know what? It doesn't matter which way it's looking. So I click once to start my section, click twice to finish my section. If you want to change the direction that the section is looking at, you're gonna use these little arrows here, click, and see that is going to flip the direction. This box that you see here is the range of your section. So the idea is that in the case of a section, it should go so it covers the entirety of the building. You do not want your section to stop halfway through. It's going to look weird. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the sections themselves. For the time being, I just want to use it so I can see what's going on. So if I double click here, this is the problem. See this like double crossing? That's bad. That should never happen because again, this is telling me that one geometry is ignoring the other one, okay? So look what's gonna happen again when I select my walls. Another easy way, instead of having to go click, click, click and add each wall, because all of these walls are the same type and that type is different from these other ones, another thing that you could do is select one of them, right click, and then go select all instances in the entire project. And it's gonna select all of the walls that are of this same interior 5-inch partition to our type. So again, I'm gonna go attach top to base. So that means that it's going to attach the top of my wall to the base of whatever I click on. Click, bam, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Now look what's gonna happen on my section. See, this is what we want to see. See, the ceiling stops my wall. Okay, there you have it. If you want to be even more hardcore, after you do that, you could lock it. So that way, if you ever change your ceiling height, it will automatically change your wall height. But if I correct, by aligning the top to bottom option, you automatically lock them. So check it out. If I go here 8 feet, for example, see, now my walls follow. So remember, being parametric is the most important aspect of your Revit geometry. You don't want to change one thing and then have to enter this panic mode of like, oh my God, what else is affected by this change? What am I forgetting? You want things to be related to each other. And that's pretty much it. This is how we can add our walls and make sure that they all respect the boundary that is my ceiling. And with that, we have reached the end of this video. I hope you find that helpful. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to add them in the comments and I will try to reply to them as soon as I can. Feel free to like and subscribe. But otherwise, thank you very much for joining in. Thank you very much for sticking through and I will see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye.